Risk for infant maltreatment. People who cannot speak for themselves in our society are the largest group at highest risk for maltreatment, especially infants and very young children. It is the healthcare provider's role to be their voice. It is a mandate to report suspicions or actual injuries resulting from child abuse. It is very important to conduct a thorough examination of the child to determine the extent of the injury and possible cause. Consistent healthcare providers can be very beneficial, especially if there is a concern that a child may be at risk. Children are the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future. It is the work of the infant to feel love, learn to trust by having their needs met, and to grow and develop and start taking the early steps of exploring their world. It is the work of the parents or other primary caregiver to help this happen. Mental health starts in infancy with the attachment formation with their primary caregivers. Learning safety, trust, and security in attachment are the first building blocks in human growth and relationships. Child maltreatment is the mistreatment by abuse or neglect for all children under 18 years of age. Infant maltreatment is for those less than 1 year old, though some studies may include children up to 3 years of age. Infant maltreatment includes all types of physical or emotional ill treatment, sexual abuse, neglect, negligence, commercial or other exploitation resulting in actual or potential harm to the child's health, survival, development, or dignity in the context of a relationship of responsibility, trust, or power. Exposure to intimate partner violence is also sometimes included as a form of child maltreatment. The different types of infant maltreatment include all of these listed here. However, when considering neglect and all of its various forms, it is important to also consider failure to thrive or failure of the infant to gain weight. After other possible medical conditions have been ruled out, it is important to look at this condition within the context of the family situation, their culture, as well as other possible issues such as errors in formula preparation, a lack of extended family to help, lack of emotional strength or maturity to nurture their infant, domestic violence or other stressors that interfere in their ability to care for their child. In the United States, a report of child abuse is made every 10 seconds. This hidden problem is not only a family or parenting problem, but this is a societal problem. Child abuse reporting is an opportunity to get the child the protection they need. It is also an opportunity to get the family the help they need. The goal is for the child to grow, thrive, be happy, and grow up to be a healthy and productive member of society. Underreporting. It is estimated that between 50 to 60% of child fatalities due to maltreatment are not recorded as such on death certificates. Reporting of suspicions of child abuse for further investigation can mean the difference between living and dying for many children. It is not up to the person reporting to prove the maltreatment. It is their responsibility to report so that further investigation can be conducted. Documentation, including on death records, is very important. The statistics. Children less than 3 years old accounted for 70.3% of child abuse and neglect fatality victims in 2012 nationally. 44.4% of these were less than 1 year of age. Again, the statistics reveal that while any child can be at risk for child abuse or neglect, it is the very young child who is most at risk. As you can see in this chart, the largest group of fatality child victims were in the younger groups. Children 3 years old and less comprise 77% of all child fatalities nationally. In 2012, national child abuse data showed that the 3 largest groups of perpetrators by race or ethnicity were 48.9% white, 19.9% black, 18% Hispanic. Children of multiple racial descent had the highest rates of victimization. Again, across the United States, out of all children abused, more than 3/4 of victims were neglected, 18.3% physically abused, and 9.3% sexually abused. 10.6% of victims were other types of maltreatment such as emotional abuse or exposure to the parent's drug or alcohol abuse, threatened abuse, or safe relinquishment of a newborn. The perpetrators, the majority are individuals responsible for the care and safe being of the child. 88.5% in 2012 were the biological parents. 7.0% unknown, which we will call other, had a parental relationship. This is the second largest group. Of the other group, 3.9% were a step parent and 0.7% were adoptive parents. In Indiana 2012, our state data correlates with the national data, showing the largest group of child fatalities were 1 year of age or less. Current data shows that the largest group by sex were male. However, there have been some past years that showed the largest group were female. There are other multiple factors that impact risk for infant maltreatment, not excluding parent-child match for temperament, to name only one. Again, Indiana data matches with national data, showing the largest group of perpetrators as a biological parent. Indiana data showed that the mother's partner accounted for a larger percentage of perpetrators than national data showed. Drowning showed as a primary cause of death in 24% of the fatalities. This statistic in the database indicates that there was abuse in the form of neglect or improper supervision. A professional working with and helping to mentor parents can help prevent infant maltreatment, child abuse for family caregivers who have not abused their child but show signs of ineffective coping, such as frustration, quick to anger, difficulty in handling their anger appropriately, expectations for the child not appropriate for developmental age, lack of support system, or isolation from extended family or friends. For parents who have been abused themselves, mentoring and resources can prove invaluable, as they may not have had positive role models to learn from or may have learned harsh discipline. It is important to work and mentor those willing to learn, as another generation of child abuse can be prevented. Just because they were abused, though they are at greater risk of becoming abusers, many will not, but may need resources made available to them or guidance. A child with a parent with a mental illness is at high risk, especially if the caregiver does not address and take care of his or her own mental health needs. Other risk factors include absence of mother or father in home or child's life, poverty, isolation, or lack of other needed basic resources, unrealistic expectations of infant or child, infant lives in a stressful, chaotic, or criminal environment, presence of domestic violence, lack of appropriate supervision, and the persons in the environment have poor anger management skills. Again, when identifying these risk factors, is the child in immediate danger? If not, what resources are available to help the caregiver in handling stress, meeting their own personal needs? If a person cannot meet basic needs for self, the stress and coping burden they must bear is higher and can put a child at greatest risk for maltreatment. Infants can be injured severely by shaking, even for just a few seconds in a fit of anger or frustration. It is important again to assess and report for any child you suspect is or has been abused by anyone. Always ask the parent the story behind the injury or marks. If more than one caregiver, it's best to talk to them separately. Are stories consistent? Are they vague? Are injuries appropriate for developmental age? Has an illness or injury been left untreated? Document findings and caregiver explanations in the medical record. Again, it is mandated by the state of Indiana that you must report suspicions of child abuse maltreatment. You do not have to prove it. That is for the investigators. Some signs of infant maltreatment, neglect. Height, weight, and head circumference slightly lower for age without other medical reason. Malnutrition or dehydration without medical reason. Caregiver does not respond to meet physical or emotional needs of the infant. Poor hygiene or unsanitary conditions, which includes diaper rash, lice, bed bugs. Failure to protect the infant. Safety needs, protect from physical or emotional harm, lack of supervision. Lack of bonding to primary family caregivers. Abandonment. Infant maltreatment, neglect can have other scenarios, but these are the most common. Risk of other child endangerment, withholding medical treatment based on religious beliefs, or seeking unwarranted medical tests or treatments resulting in frequent health care hospitalizations. Withholding medical treatment based on religious beliefs that endangers a child needs to be reported. While respecting others' individual beliefs is paramount, it does not take precedence over keeping a child from harm to their life. Seeking unwarranted medical tests or treatments that result in frequent hospitalizations can be dangerous by subjecting a child to unnecessary medical tests, procedures, including painful procedures. Further evaluation by a medical team and Child Protective Services is often warranted to protect the child. A word about neglect. Some neglect may be better initially approached with less intrusive interventions, such as education for mixing formula correctly and monitoring growth. Reminder that the neglect is sometimes caused by lack of knowledge, education, or resources. In-home support services such as healthy families or a public health nurse can be valuable resources and help to connect families in their community while providing further opportunity for parent mentoring to promote positive parent-child interactions. Positive experiences can lead to positive parent and infant attachments. Potential impacts on long-term development as a result of infant-child abuse and/or neglect. They may have a long-term physical disability. A child may experience long-term emotional difficulties, an inability to trust others, a decreased feeling of safety, difficulty in establishing loving or intimate relationships that may persist throughout life, and increased cost to society if unable to be productive, contributing members of society. Other potential impacts: abused children are 25% more likely to experience teen pregnancy. About 30% of abused and neglected children will later abuse their own children, continuing the cycle of child abuse. 14% of all men in prison and 36% of women in prison were abused as children. As many as 2/3 of people receiving substance abuse treatment report they were abused as children. Adolescents and young adults with a history of childhood maltreatment were 3 times more likely to become depressed or suicidal when compared with others without maltreatment history. Preventative interventions. Provide education about infant-child development, parenting, and community resources, and document in the medical record. Arrange for follow-up visits in the office, in-home visits, or wrap-around community services as appropriate. Provide education and resources on age-appropriate discipline. Assess for family dynamics, composition of the family unit, needed resources, and inability to obtain. Assess for unrealistic or unmet parental expectations of the child for opportunities to intervene and provide support. Engage and reward community partners to provide resources with assisting the family. Acute interventions. Make documented report of child abuse or neglect. Ensure that infant child is safe upon leaving. If safety is a concern when leaving your facility, discuss concerns and further actions before the child leaves.
In Indiana, you can report suspicions of child abuse to the Indiana Child Abuse and Neglect Hotline at 1-800-800-5556. The hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including holidays.
Here is just a summary of the Indiana law. Infant child abuse and neglect impacts all communities now and in the future. The cost of suffering and death to children is too high. Even one child's death is too many. Coordination among different agencies and across jurisdictions is essential for accurate reporting and serving infants and children in need. Accurate determination of the manner and cause of death is extremely important. Preventative interventions in communities to prevent child abuse are key factors in helping to address a hidden problem. Everyone must work together to address child abuse.